Hello to everyone. I am Florencia Camara, economist and researcher from the Fundación Interamericana del Corazón Argentina. I'm glad to share with you some insights and results of our research about the cost and affordability of diet during a pandemic year. Before starting, I would like to mention that FIC Argentina is an NGO with the mission of promoting public policies and the social changes to defend the right to health for the reduction of non-communicable diseases. Also, I declare that I have no conflict of interest, and FIC Argentina does not receive any funds from the tobacco, pharmaceutical, food, alcoholic, and sugary beverages industry. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to be presenting the research called Leveraging a National Big Data Source to Measure the Cost and Affordability between Current and Healthy Diets, an Analysis for Argentina during the pandemic year, submission 103. So, to start, I would like to share some statistics about Argentina. The prevalence of overweight, including obesity, is 61.6%, and as you can see on the picture on the right, it has an upward trend since 2005. So more than half of the population in Argentina is overweighted. Also, consuming healthy diets is a priority to reduce the prevalence of non-communicable diseases, particularly obesity. And obesity is also a modifiable risk factor for the COVID-19 related mortality. So in this frame, implementing policies for promoting healthy diets is not only important to prevent non-communicable diseases, but also in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. On the other hand, food choice and food consumption habits is a social phenomenon which is affected by many factors like flavor, convenience, food availability, price, and promotions. So in this context, the cost and the affordability of food has been recognized as one of the most important factors determining the consumption habits of the population, and they might be a barrier for the population to access to a healthy diet. In this frame, the main of this research was to analyze the cost and affordability gaps between current and healthy diets for the Argentinian population during 2020. The research was driven by the following questions. Is a healthy diet more expensive and less affordable than the current diet for the Argentinian population? How was the evolution of the cost and affordability gaps between current and healthy diets during 2020? And at this point, I would like to mention as well that the analysis is focused on the Greater Buenos Aires region, which is highlighted on the map, and it represents almost 40% of the population of the country. So about the methodology that we use in this research, it will be a good idea to point out some previous definition. So when I talk about the current diet, I mean to a basket of fat products that reflects the habitual consumption patterns of the population, both in variety of foods and in average quantities. When I talk about healthy diet, I mean a basket of food products that reflects the healthy consumption option, designed following not just the habitual consumption patterns, but also the dietary guidelines and the recommendations about energy and nutrient intakes. So, and also along the presentation, I will be talking about affordability of the diet. So it is worth mentioning that affordability is a measure of the economic capacity of an individual or household to access a diet. at a given time. So this measure indicates how much of an average income is needed to buy a diet. Okay? The diet cost analysis performed in this research is based on an adaptation of the optimal approach proposed by Informas, which is the International Network for Food and Obesity Non-Communicable Diseases Research Monitoring and Action Support, which is a global network of organizations that aims to monitor food environments to reduce obesity and related non-communicable diseases. So with this aim, they have proposed different protocols for the analysis of food environments. One of them is the food prices protocol, which we're referring to in this research. So for the Argentinian case specifically, the current diet and two types of healthy diets were modeled. The first healthy diet, which I'm calling HT1, is a diet which has equal energy intake than the current diet. And a second healthy diet, which is lower in energy than the current diet. And the percentage is based on literature review. So the adaptation of the Informas protocol included the consideration of the dietary guidelines for the Argentinian population and the most consumed food products in Argentina for designing the diets. The most consumed food products were identified by the last expenditures household survey available for Argentina. And also the diets were designed for a typical household, which is conformed by 40 years old man and woman, a 14 years old boy, and a 7 years old girl, and for a period of 14 days. So a major limitation for this kind of analysis used to be the availability of price data. The two main price data sources that are used for this kind of research are the price data sets surveyed for the calculation of the consumer price index. But the problem with this source is that it includes prices just for the 50 most consumed food products. So these 50 most consumed food products are not representatives of the food products included in a healthy diet. And the other data source is the information of the household expenditure survey. But the limitation of this source is that it does not survey prices directly. So as a strategy to overcome this lack of information, we propose to leverage a national big data source, the Precios Claros website. Precios Claros website is an electronic price advertising system, which is developed by the national government of Argentina. So it provides information about the product prices in different retailers and wholesalers throughout the country, and it is continually updated. So on the background of this website, there is a huge price data set. So the next problem for us was to resolve how to get this data set. So after looking different alternatives, which included a request for public information to the government, for example, we decided by the application of a web scraping method on the website. Open Data Córdoba, another non-profit organization, performed the first two web scraps of the Precios Claros websites, one in 2018 and another in 2020. The code and the download data are publicly available. So for the purpose of this research specifically, we use the April 2020 price data set to estimate the cost of the diets. But for future plans, we are planning to perform our own web scrapes to record food prices history. So to summarize the methodology, I could mention the following steps. At the first step, the price by food product, average retail prices of 112 food products were used based on April 2020 Precios Claros dataset, which was scraped by Open Data Source. The prices refers to the greatest Buenos Aires. As a step 2, the design of the current and healthy diets for Argentina. It was based on the Informal Price Protocol, the dietary guidelines for Argentina, and a list of the most consumed food products in the country. This step was led by the nutrition expert of the FIC Argentina, and they performed linear programming methodologies to determine 3 different combinations of food products for each kind of diet, the current and the 2 healthy diets, which meet the micro and macronutrient requirements. As a step 3, which is the cost of the diets in April 2020, with the amount of each food product conforming the different combination per kind of diet created in step 2, and the prices for the step 1, the cost of the diet was calculated per food group. So I will show you later in the results section a little more about the food groups. And then with the cost per group, a Monte Carlo simulation was performed to estimate an average cost for each kind of diet. So for the current diet and the 2 healthy diets. As a step 4, estimation of the prices and diet cost along the year 2020. As we don't have any other downloaded price dataset than the April 2020, we had to extrapolate the food prices along the year by applying the food groups price variability measured by the Consumer Price Index for the Greater Buenos Aires region. After we estimated the prices, we applied the step 3 to estimate the cost of the diet along the year. And finally, as a step 5, the affordability of the diets, as I mentioned at the beginning, was calculated as a percentage of the average income that is needed to cover the cost of current and healthy diet for a typical Argentinian household. So now let's go to the interesting part, which is the results that we got from our research. In April 2020, the cost of a current diet in Argentina was around 15,000 Argentinian pesos, while the cost of a healthy diet, the HD1, was around 20,000 Argentinian pesos, and the cost of the second healthy diet, the HD2, the cost was around 19,000 Argentinian pesos. That means that the healthy diet 1 was 32.7% more expensive than the current diet. And the healthy diet 2 was 22.8% more expensive than the current diet. So when we decompose the cost of the diets between food groups, which I am showing in the screen, we find big difference on the participation of the food groups on the total cost between the diets. So, for example, fruits and vegetables on the bottom of the figure represent just 12% of the current diet cost, but 34% of the cost of a healthy diet. On the other hand, meat and eggs represent 26% of the current diet cost, while it represents just the 20% of the healthy diet cost. And another interesting comparison is the non-core foods, which represent the food that are not recommended for habitual consumption, like for example, sugary beverages, snacks, and this kind of products. So these kind of products represent 24% of the cost of a current diet, but just the 5% of the cost in a healthy diet. Now, on this slide, I show you the evolution of the cost gap between the current diet and both of the healthy diets along the year. The inflationary process, which is something very characteristic of the Argentinian economy, and some seasonal component of the price of some products, has affected differently the evolution of food prices by products. So the gaps between the current diet and the healthy diet were affected by it as well. It is possible to note in the figure that the gap of the cost increased to 47% and 36% for the healthy diet too on October, a period highly influenced by seasonality of the price of some fruit and vegetables. But in the annual comparison from December 2019 to December 2020, the gap between the healthy diet 1 and the current diet increased from 28% to 41%. So in December 2020, the cost of a healthy diet 1 is 41% more expensive than a current diet, which is alarming. And finally, regarding to the affordability of the diet, on this figure, we can see that the healthy diets are less affordable than the current diet. But we can also say that the current diet is 4% point less affordable in December 2020 than in the same period of 2019, while the healthy diets are 11 or 12 percentage points less affordable in December 2020. So not just the affordability of the diet has been reduced over 2020, but this reduction has been greater for healthy diets. To summarize the main results, the cost and the affordability gaps between the current and healthy diets increased during the pandemic year. And the affordability of both current and healthy diets has been reduced over 2020, but this reduction has been greater for healthy diets. And to conclude the presentation, I would like to emphasize that it is necessary to implement urgent measures to transform the obesogenic environment, making healthier products more affordable, available, and desirable, and discouraging the consumption of nutrient-poor, energy-rich foods. And in a more general matter, big data tools were valuable to overcome the limitation of price data ability and to be able to estimate the cost and the affordability gaps between diets. So that's all for me. Thank you very much for this and see you soon.